Welcome back to Annie Explained. The story unfolds with a devastating incident where people are falling, cars crashing, and before long, they were all up in flames. The children at the Hyakuya orphanage assembled themselves to hide together, with the older ones, Yuichiro, Michaela, and Akane taking the lead. A blaring announcement came from nowhere, informing them about a deadly virus that has plagued everywhere and humans will perish. As a result, every human above the age of 13 died. A group of vampires suddenly appeared to take the children away to their new life. At the care facility run by the vampires, the children are used as the source of strength and nutrition for the vampires. Yuichiro stubbornly refuses to take the drink provided after their assessment, which is to protect them from sickness. Yuichiro attacks some vampires maltreating children, and they attempt to throw him over a balcony, but Mika pleads on his behalf. Every day, Mika gives his blood to Lord Ferret, a noble vampire. Without understanding Mika's reasons, Yuichiro expresses anger over how Mika relates with the vampires and refuses to talk to him. Later, Akane comes to speak with Yuichiro where he hangs out alone, but he sends her away and tells her, as usual, that he has no family. Akane reminds him of the day he was introduced to their orphanage. At the Hyakuya orphanage, everyone is family, but Yuichiro refuses to accept it. That night, Akane prepares a feast for the family with the ingredients provided by Mika, but Yuichiro refuses to eat. When Mika returns, he forces Yuichiro to eat, shows him a map of how to escape, and gives him a gun. Hurriedly, they assembled their family members for the escape. Halfway through, Lord Ferret catches up with them and everyone except Yuichiro perishes. Yuichiro makes it out, where he meets a group willing to use him to end the vampires and agrees. For years later, Yuichiro is now one of them. Every day since that night, the scenes haunt Yuichiro, but he keeps living for revenge against the vampires. Now a soldier, Yuichiro is on patrol at night when a monster appears. His older colleagues call him back to let them handle it, but he refuses because he lives to punish the vampires. As punishment for disobeying a command, Yuichiro's superior sends him to a civilian school which he hates so much. In class, Yuichiro mumbles to himself about unfair treatment, which disturbs the teacher. A girl named Shirnoa taps him from behind, revealing herself as the surveillance officer assigned to him from the army, so Yuichiro has no option but to comply or he will not be accepted into the vampire extermination unit. Years ago, when Yuichiro escaped the vampire's den, he meets the lieutenant of the Japanese Imperial Demon Army, Ichino's Guren. Guren reveals that, contrary to what the vampires told them, a 10th portion of the human race was not wiped out, and with that population, they are trying to rally around and regain the human race. While Yuichiro succeeds in being a soldier, Guren refuses to grant him leave to join the vampire extermination unit. He leaves Shirnoa angrily for his locker. There, he meets Yoichi, another classmate, who allows himself to be bullied for a chance to get into the army. Yuichiro tries to help him and suddenly, everyone hears an announcement about a vampire invasion in school. Yuichiro tries to defeat it on his own, but Guren saves him. Yoichi tackles him in a hug for his bravery. Guren considers Yoichi friends with Yuichiro and fulfills his promise. He enlists Yuichiro in the vampire extermination unit and Yoichi in the army. The next day at school, a girl shyly thanks Yuichiro for saving her from the invading vampire, offers him a latte and hurries away. Shirnoa teases Yuichiro about it, but Yuichiro does not find it funny. He complains to Shirnoa about Guren's refusal to withdraw him from school, which he finds upsetting. Shirnoa tells him to confront Guren about it instead of yelling at her about his frustration. She teaches him the importance of training well for the vampire extermination team. Since the human world lacks sufficient people, the army values the importance of teamwork to keep everyone alive and establishing relationships in order to procreate. Yamanaka and his friends, who had bullied Yoichi the day before, approach him in need of help because their friend is in trouble. Yuji broke the school's rule about entering a restricted area and they need help getting him out. Yuichiro calls them out about how they bullied Yoichi previously and they apologize for behaving badly. He consults Shirnoa about the restricted area and she informs him that the area is the vampire extermination team's training room, which is dangerous for civilians. Shirnoa explains that fights against vampires can only be won using special weapons provided through a demon contract and not with mere swords. Since Yuichiro is yet to train, he does not possess the right weapon to help Yuji, who is already demon-possessed. Shinoa's refusal to let Yuichiro save Yuji falls on deaf ears and Yuichiro opens the door to the training room. Running over to Yuji, who has his back turned while holding a mighty weapon, Yuichiro aims for him. He starts to hallucinate about his family at the table, eating happily together. Mika accuses him of not avenging them yet and offers Yuichiro strength to empower him. Surprisingly, Yuichiro wakes up on his own in Shinoa's arms and hopes that his attempt will change Guren's perception of him. Vampires attack and claim another portion of humans outside their clan. Amongst the attacking vampires is Michaela, who is now a vampire also, but strong and daunting. During the attack, Mika ensures that there are no casualties and secretly saves a little boy from being hurt. In gratitude, the boy offers his blood to Mika. There, Mika recalls what happened after Yuichiro left for safety. Though their plan failed, Mika lies dying on the floor, thankful that at least Yuichiro was saved. Kroll Teeps, the vampire queen, comes in to meet the bodies and Lord Ferret and demands to know what transpired. Against Mika's protests, she gave him her blood, which kept him from dying and turned him into a vampire. Now, at Yuichiro's school, Kimazuki, a boy from the school, picks a fight with him for no reason, which bruises his face. He meets with Yoichi and Shinoa to resume his first day at the extermination unit classes. There, Guren directs them to their seats, after giving them appropriate instructions. Yuichiro meets Kimazuki, who is also a member of the class, in his seat, and another fight ensues over sitting arrangements. Guren separates the fight, and everyone proceeds to the first lesson, which is about teamwork and team building. The teacher instructs everyone to pick a better, and everyone did except Kimazuki and Yuichiro. The two grudgingly paired up, and the exercise began. Soon, they're bickering about each other's decisions. Just then, the teacher informs Kimazuki that he is needed at the hospital for his sister, but he refuses to go and asks them to proceed with the training. Kimazuki applied to the army to get help for his ailing sister, so he needed the training to retain his grades. Yuichiro forces him to go because family is more important than anything else. He accompanies Kimazuki to the hospital to see his sister. Later, they hung out outside to talk. Meanwhile, the vampires faction declared war against the Japanese Imperial Demon Army, as they were fast becoming a threat to them. At the meeting for all vampire nobles, they discussed the need to destroy the Japanese Imperial Demon Army because they are making plans to carry out the same operation that once led to a plague in the human world. The Vampire Queen declares war against the Human Academy. Secretly, Mika promises to rescue Yuichiro. After a tedious political meeting, Guren steps out angrily and Yuichiro confronts him for not giving him an infernal weapon, which is the only arm capable of defeating a vampire. Because of his constant insistence, Guren promises to assign a weapon to him and send him to the front line, even though he is yet to finish his training. The students in the Human Academy are assigned internal weapons according to their test grades. Shinoa snatches Yuichiro's assessment paper from him and runs about the class with it, teasing and making jests of him for scoring a 0. Soon, Kumazuki joins in to tease Yuichiro about his grades, making them close rowdy. Guren comes to the class, and Kimazuki and Yuichiro protest against him for abandoning the class for so long. Guren unsheathes his infernal arm and the demon begins to spread about the whole class. While some fell unconscious, others remained conscious but weak. Yoichi, Kumazuki, Yuichiro, and Shinoa proceeded with the infernal arm training. On the way to the room equipped with the infernal arms, Guren gives them the instructions. Inside the room, at his command, everyone draws their weapon of choice to begin their test. Guren warns the four that if they are unable to convert the demon's power for their use, two things can open and either one will lead to death. The demon appears as Kumazuki's sister, accusing him of being self-centered and absorbed, but he banishes it. Yuichiro sees his beloved family from the orphanage, including Miki, accusing him of leading them and making new friends instead of joining them. Yuichiro banishes the demons and refuses to yield to the voices. The demon makes Yuichiro promise not to trust his fellow humans as that has caused the downfall of many great people. Everyone else successfully conquers the challenging demon and acquires its powers except Yoichi. In his memories, the demon finds no lust, revenge, or hatred to feed on and decides that Yoichi is too weak to accommodate her. Rather than submit herself to him, she possesses him to revenge his lost sister in his place. The students and Guren all wait for Yoichi to wake up from his trance, but he returns possessed. As their first mission in the Japanese Imperial Demon Army, Guren orders them to fight and subdue Yoichi. Kimazuki attacks at once, but Yuichiro hesitates to strike because he refuses to kill a friend even if he is possessed. Shinoa begs Guren to intervene, but he refuses and decides to watch the boys. Yuichiro drops his weapon. Instead, he begins to call out to Yoichi to conquer the demon and regain himself. Soon, Yoichi regains control of his body and vows that from then henceforth, instead of hiding away from trouble, he will always protect his loved ones. Guren commends their teamwork and advises them that instead of focusing on vengeance for their lost family, they should focus on preserving the new one. Guren informs them of a possible vampire invasion and invites them for surveillance since they are now armed. Yuichiro wakes up from a haunting dream where Mika is upset with him for leaving them. After his morning routine, he wears his new uniform befitting his new rank for the surveillance mission. In the lobby, he meets Shirnoa, who follows him to the train station to brief him on what the mission entails. Yuichiro's only goal is to be able to slay vampires. He asks Shirnoa if he will be able to do so during the mission, but she begs him to focus on making their defense better around the city. Shirnoa and Yuichiro meet up with the other members of their squad, Kimazuki, Yuichi, and a new member, Matsuba, who is angry with Goran for making Shirnoa the team leader and pairing her with 3 new members. Outside the protective walls, Matsuba acts on the body and separates herself from the group after yelling instructions at them. Soon, the first obstacle comes as a horseman monster pursuing a little girl towards a dangerous cliff. Against the orders of the team leader to maintain formation, Yuichiro runs to face the horseman and save the girl. Matsuba helps him to destroy the horseman, and before any of them can prepare, the vampires fly into the arena. Yuichiro falls into the trap of the vampires to lure humans out with the horseman, so his team has to face the consequences together. They successfully overpowered the vampires and they ran away to get back up. The Imperial Demon Squad quickly retreats to the base to avoid the vampire backup soldiers. At their base, Matsuba scolds Yuichiro for acting solo and he apologizes for putting everyone in danger. Kumazuki asks the little girl for information about the vampire hideout where humans are held captive and she gives it. The squad went out again to subdue the demons and release the human captives, after giving them instructions to retreat at the sight of a vampire formation they cannot handle. At the vampire camp, where humans were held captive, Shirnoa presumes that the vampires were asleep and calls her fellow officers to attack with full force. Without waiting for others, Yuichiro takes out the first vampire, which upsets Mitsuba again because Yuichiro is failing woefully at teamwork again. Mitsuba starts to accuse him, but he drags her out of the way to destroy a vampire at her back. Yoichi cheers excitedly for Yuichiro as he fulfills his lifelong desire to destroy vampires. Suddenly, more vampires began to come out and the squad realized that the little girl was bait. One of the vampires catches Mitsuba unaware and Mitsuba begs them to fall back and run, but Yuichiro vows never to leave a comrade behind and goes after the vampires. The squad members attack the vampires. After the fight, the hostages are rescued, and the little girl apologizes to Yuichiro for agreeing to be bait, but Yuichiro assures her that it is alright because she did it for her friends. Moving on, the squad hotwired a car with Kimazuki's skills to reach the next city faster. On their way, they noticed a thick cloud of smoke and prepares for battle. In the town, they were confronted by a noble and 2 normal vampires. The soldiers refused to retreat and got ready for more, but the 2 normal vampires informed the noble that Ferret would like to see him. The Japanese Imperial Army fired shots of arrows at the incoming aircraft of the vampires swiftly at their commander's order. All the aircraft were set ablaze. Just as he begins to give the final order, a bigger aircraft arrives, crashing into a building and collapsing it, with many vampire soldiers coming out. The vampires were ready to take down the Japanese Imperial Army. A full fire attack starts and the soldiers begin to run from one building to another for safety while engaging the vampires. Lieutenant Guren uses a telescope to view the position of the commander of the vampire soldiers, Lord Ferret, from afar and instructs Yuichiro's squad on what to do. Lord Ferret senses that he is being watched and alerts Mika to be vigilant. Mika is sullen and mute and Ferret mocks him for refusing to feed on humans as he is beginning to lack nutrition. Mika talks back at him for killing his family and leaving him desolate, but Ferret only laughs at him and Mika leaves. After the vampire queen Kroll has turned Mika into their kind, he refuses to eat from humans for nutrients, no matter the persuasion. Kroll offers her blood to replace that of humans, but Mika will have to be her underdog for life. For the battle, Kroll gives him 10 days worth of blood to sustain and Mika intends to find Yuichiro within those days. As Yuichiro's unit approaches the defensive lines, Mitsuba and Shirnoa give Yuichiro, Kumaziko and Yuichi basic lessons for the battle against noble vampires. Since they did not have enough time to train with their weapons, Shirnoa gives them a special pill to boost their powers for 15 minutes. Just then, a vampire aircraft attacks their truck. Yuichiro and Shirnoa fell out of the debris unhurt. While the others proceeded to the lines, they took the truck's driver for treatment. At the battleground, Mika stands looking around and Guren arrives, with his sword drawn for an attack. Guren leads his army to face Lord Ferret's army at the defense lines and urges his soldiers to give the fight their all. As Mika stands on the battlefield, he recalls his dreams with Yuichiro and how he hoped that their family could escape from the vampires into a better life, living freely and without fear. After dropping the truck driver off for treatment, Shirnoa informs Yuichiro of their orders and they leave for the battleground. Shirnoa and Yuichiro's orders were to join the battle at the defensive lines. On their way, Yuichiro hears a conversation that only 3 people were holding off the rear. He understood immediately that it is Mitsuba, Kimazuki, and Yoichi. He decides to disobey Guren's order and help them out instead. Shirnoa accompanies him because earlier, Guren had declared them a family. At the rear, they join the trio to finish off the last set of enemies before proceeding to the defense lines together. Meanwhile, in the defense lines, the soldiers have their hands full. Lord Ferret sends Mika after Guren, who comes for him with full force. The battle continues in the defense lines, with Guren and his soldiers trying to fend off the attacks to their possible best. It is difficult fighting against top-class vampires, and Guren starts to lose strength as Mika comes to him ceaselessly by feeding his powers to his sword. Lord Ferret mocks his arrogance and warns him not to let it be his end. Guren decides to take another pill, against the pleas of his subordinates, as it is dangerous to take more than one in a battle. Soon, Shirnoa and her teammates arrive to rescue Guren to safety as Mika holds him down with his back turned towards them. Yuichiro attacks him from behind to save Guren. Only after attacking did Yuichiro realize who it was. Lieutenant Guren angrily smacks Yuichiro for not destroying Mika, but he is completely still and unable to speak coherently. Mika recovers from his shock and swiftly moves away because Yuichiro did not activate the demon on his sword to kill him. Guren angrily barks commands at his people. Yuichiro repeatedly mentions Mika's name in disbelief at seeing his family members alive. Ferret mocks the reunion of Mika and Yuichiro. Mika goes back to him and tells him the plan to finish off other humans and protect Yuichiro. To Mika, Yuichiro's kindness is being overused by humans and he is trusting them blindly, so he needs saving. Lord Ferret orders his unit to attack the Japanese Imperial soldiers, not to kill them, but capture them as hostages and leave Yuichiro unhurt. Suddenly, more noble vampires arrive at the defense lines, which makes the vampires out of bounds for the Imperial soldiers. Mika takes Yuichiro away from the battleground to speak to him. Yuichiro forcefully releases himself from Mika's grip and accuses him of becoming a vampire. Mika's plea for them to run away together is futile, as Yuichiro disagrees to leave his human friends behind even if they were using him. Yuichiro becomes the trump card. Using him to stall for time, Guren waits until the other forces in their army arrive, and his commander instructs them to take the vampire nobles alive. For 5 days after the battle, Shirnoa searches for Guren but does not find him. On this day, she visits the out-of-bound facility in search of him. At the gate, the soldiers forbid her from gaining access because of her rank, but she shows her Hiragi crest and she is allowed passage. Inside the facility, Shirnoa sees humans in each room looking as lifeless and as weak as ever. Apparently, some humans are used for an experiment known as Seraph of the End, which will supposedly fortify the human world. Inside the facility, Shirnoa confronts Lieutenant Ichino's Guren about it, but he refuses to speak to her about the human experiment. Instead, he accuses Shirnoa of being infatuated with Yuichiro. She informs Guren that Yuichiro is still unconscious from the fight after he deceived her into giving him the wrong pill. Guren tells her that he will wake up, but after 5 days. At the vampire facility, the vampires recuperate from their injuries and they discuss what transpired at the battleground amongst themselves. Earlier, at the battleground, Mika refuses to leave unless he saves Yuichiro. After a futile attempt at persuasion, Ferret seizes him and drags him out. Mika hates humans as well as vampires, so he is unable to reconcile his identity. In the dressing room, the vampires question him about his relationship with Yuichiro and his identity. While he refuses to say anything about Yuichiro, he simply tells them that he is an average ugly vampire and leaves to answer Queen Kroll's call. Yuichiro's unit members continually fuss over him as he remains in a coma. After 7 days, he finally wakes up with Yoichi by his bedside and no memories of what happened. Happily, Yoichi goes out of the room to inform the other members of the unit that Yuichiro is awake. At once, all 4 of them enter the room to remain with him. Yuichiro thanks them for worrying about him and for staying alive and secretly promises to save Mika. At the vampire facility, Mika makes the same promise. If you did, kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can bring you more mind-blowing anime recaps like this. Until next time, take care.